So hi everyone, you join me in a very small studio in Taipei, and I'm joined by the one, the only John from Asianometry. Now you'll notice that John doesn't show his face in his videos. I have adhered to that request, so please be bemused by his logo on his face. Good to see you, John.
Hi, thanks for having me. Welcome to be here.
It's really weird. I'm looking at you and all I've known is your voice from the internet. I know you've done a number of these interviews before where you've spoken about where you've come from, but can you recap kind of who you are, what you've done, and why did you start the channel in the first place?
Yeah. It's pretty good to retell it again. It changes the story every time. So I was bumming around the Silicon Valley for about 10 years, doing just whatever. Living on couches and whatnot. And after working in marketing or e-commerce and all that, decided that I was done with that and I wanted to go to Asia. So sent out applications and resumes to about 4 different cities in Singapore, Hong Kong, Shanghai, everywhere. And the only one that gave me an offer that I wanted was Taipei. So jetted over, and about a year in, I kind of started this channel mostly as a way to share tourist videos for my mom, because my mom was wondering what I was doing. So I'd be like, going to this, climbing up this one mountain or whatnot. And then over time, it was inspired by other YouTube channels to start making documentaries. And 6 years later, now I'm here. It's pretty crazy.
You're here and almost 500,000 subscribers to the black. Your family's from this area, aren't they?
One half of them is, and the other half is from Hong Kong.
Because I remember speaking earlier, you said everybody thinks that you're just this white guy from Silicon Valley in Asia. But just to dispel that myth for everyone who doesn't believe me, I can confirm. But your background is in the tech industry, but not in sort of history or storytelling.
Right. I basically I was a marketer, right?
So it is in storytelling.
It's definitely not storytelling. I was more like a performance marketer, so kind of the Google Ads kind of thing, and so kind of very spreadsheets oriented. So I think almost the channel is sort of like a side thing where I can kind of express my creativity and whatnot.
So your videos go from anywhere from 12 minutes over to 25 or even more, and it's just your voice over B-roll. Mm-hmm. What made you decide to go in that direction for your content? And can you explain kind of what your process is?
The reason I started that was because my first videos were about China and really about kind of geopolitics and really deep Chinese history stuff, and I figured it would be a great idea to not get targeted by people by that. And over time, and a lot of people just sort of kind of made kind of this in-joke about it. And since then, it's not so much of a big deal anymore, but I don't like being kind of seen on the street or anything. Not that people see me on the street in Taiwan, but hear your stories about getting stopped by 20 people in the trade fair. I'm glad to be just walking around anonymously.
I was at TSMC's AGM yesterday, and one person I was with Linus, and he got stopped on the street in Taipei, and that is kind of insane. I kind of do get where you're coming from with that, but your channel is full of videos. I mean, it's titled Asianometry, and it's meant to be sort of deep dives into Asian culture. You also cover non-Asian culture in the tech space.
Yeah.
What's your process of deciding what to talk about, and how do you go about researching that? Do you think you're going deeper than most other people would?
At the start, I wasn't going that deep. I was like picking up a couple newspapers, websites, academic papers and whatnot. But over time, the reason I pick up a topic is because I'm really passionate about it. I research the question until I'm satisfied. And so over time, I got a lot more greedy, I would say. And so the first videos, I would say around 6 or 8 minutes long. Now, the one I just delivered is something like 45 minutes long, 35 minutes. A lot of these are really big, and they use something like 20, 25 sources. It's tiring. But I'm satisfied with it. I don't stop it until I'm satisfied.
Do you ever find yourself as part of those stories getting access to information you think other people normally wouldn't?
No. I think it's the same thing that everyone else does. And I just decide that I want to, and in order to, to be frank, like if you want your video to be seen as better than the others, you need to do more work. So I'm working right now on a video about ChatGPT and prompt injection. And I need, it's been 2 or 3 days in, and I feel like I still need like a couple more weeks work there on that.
A couple more weeks, but you post at least 1 or 2 videos a week these days. It sounds like it's becoming almost your full-time job.
Yeah, unfortunately it's not. So, I work in the mornings around 6 or 7 a.m. and then done around 10 or 11, run off to my real job, and then have dinner and all that, and then start working again from 8 to around midnight.
We had dinner the other night, and one of the questions I asked you is, are you one of these weird people who can get by on 4 hours sleep a night?
That is true. I do a lot of videos. There are a lot of videos that I just started like go into like 2 a.m. or I'll start one at like 3 or 4 just because I won't get bothered by other people.
It's Patrick Kennedy, our good friend at Serve the Home. He claims he's not one of these 4 hours a night guys, but having stayed with him, he definitely is. Is there one video you kind of hold above all others in your repertoire?
I really like the Soviet one that goes to Venus, like how they put a lander on Venus. So it was one of those ones that I kind of been questioning for a long time. I was just wondering how it did. And the funny thing is that video is quite popular now. But as it turns out, like I found a lot more resources since then that I would love to include. So maybe I'll do a remake. I've never done a remake before. We'll see how it goes.
At least in the tech review space, every couple of years we always get, a Sandy Bridge revisit, 10-year retrospective, maybe it's kind of like that. So it's interesting you bring that up because I've done a Soviet video as well, and I notice that every so often I get Russian spikes in terms of views. Are you getting that?
I know someone's watching those Soviet videos. It's not the Russians. I think it's Europe. They're really interested in that. It's very strange.
Ah,
yeah.
So here's where I ask: what topics are on the cutting room floor that you've done substantial amounts of research in, but just felt it wasn't right to cover?
Water stuff. Like I'm obsessed with water engineering and like moving water, how to filter water. Like there are some really deep water videos that like I'm just kind of 10, 20 minutes in, like video wise, and I'm just like, I can't finish this. I have no idea what this is about. I'm just talking about like, I was doing one video and it talked about particle physics, and it got really deep into like how water kind of affects like friction on like gravel as it rolls the gravel around. And then that was like 10,000 words or something. And I was like, okay, this is not, no one's going to watch this.
I don't know. There's an audience for everyone, right? Are you getting to the size now where you're just considering some topics too small?
Yeah, I do think there are some topics. I used to do a lot of like company profiles early on, and I find that the company profiles, they're really interesting to people in the company, or maybe a couple people around, but with a few exceptions, no one really cares. Like it's tougher to do those now. Like if I were to do a video about like Broadcom, mm-hmm. I think that would be like a 6,000 to 10,000 view video. There's a lot of people in Broadcom who would be interested in it, but it's not going to be a 200,000, 300,000 K video.
Yeah, your video on ICL, the rise and fall of ICL in the UK. Yeah, I mean, I really like that video because it's part of history, right? But unless you're really interested in that part of history, but just to corroborate that, this AI hardware show that I'm doing, we're talking about 6 companies an episode. Mm-hmm. I'm finding that the company really loves their episode. So yeah, I can kind of see where you're coming from there. Do you have any kind of highlights of people who have reached out that you wouldn't thought would be engaged with your content? Any sort of high profile names that you want to name drop?
Not really. I think there's the ones I really enjoy, the ones who are really honest about what they've done. I think there was one guy who used to be a CFO for one of the fabs, and he just, we just went back and forth about he's retired now, and just talked a little bit about what it was like to run a fab back in the 70s. And, that was real fun because I got to learn a lot about kind of what the culture was like, because you can kind of read a little bit about what the culture was from oral histories and whatnot, but you can't really sense it until you ask people. And they're always censoring some parts. So there's some bits I can't tell, of course, but it's really fun anyways.
It's from the guys probably still have that NDA from the 70s, maybe.
Yeah, for sure.
When you message people and you say, "Hey, I'm John from Asianometry," are you finding it opens doors these days?
No way. I don't even think. I still, I haven't been to the States in 4 or 5 years. And so since I got big, and I still have this perception that I'm not that big. I still believe I'm not that big, and I have proof that I'm not that big. So like, people don't respond to my emails at all. It's funny.
I heard that just before Computex, you had a kind of small gathering with Dylan from Semi-Analysis and a few of the community. Actually, Wenyi from Business Weekly showed me a video that she took from the event. How many people were there?
About 40 people. 40 people. We had to close. We had to close signups about less than a day in, because we didn't really have that big of a venue. It was crazy. But I was really glad to see everyone there. They were really fun.
And these are all people you've obviously never met.
Yeah, almost never met. A lot of them are just random people. But I appreciate every one of them. One guy flew in from Japan to see both of us. It's funny.
Okay, that's a little weird. That's a little weird.
They wanted to see Dylan, not me.
For the financial advice, right.
For sure, yeah.
So, a lot of your content is you're retelling stories about these industries, but very rarely are they about the day-to-day news. Yeah, and that's on purpose.
Yep. Because I do these videos, I think about way ahead of time. So sometimes there's like a piece of news that maybe I'll do on, like, I think I did one about SMIC's 7 nanometer. Though I didn't really think there was not that much in it anyways. So like, I didn't really have much to say, but like, occasionally I'll kind of rush one through, but I like having like a big backlog so I can kind of just set it aside and sort of like look at it later and just be like, okay, I feel okay about this or not feel okay about this. Because I don't know about you, but every time I finish a video, I'm like, this is the worst thing I've ever done in my life.
Oh yeah, no, the 2 videos I filmed this morning before this, I've sent them to my editor now, and I'm like, let me know that they're terrible, please.
Yeah, that never goes away.
Will you ever consider? Do you think you can ever grow this to a full-time position? Is that your goal here? What are long-term visions for the channel?
It would be nice to go full-time someday, but I mean, I don't know. I feel like it's a lonely work, I feel like it's going to get pretty depressing for me if I were to not have that social interaction. Like I like talking to people. So it's one of those things that just, if I were to do this all the time, I would go crazy.
It sounds like you need a staff with the way your channel's growing.
The hard part is that kind of like, increasingly more of the time spent for each video is the research and the writing, and I write every word. So, and I don't know how LTT does it, but like, I don't know how he let go of that. So like, I don't think I can ever let go of that. So, I mean, I could spend the next 5 minutes going over how he does that. Because obviously when you get to a point, so like Linus, for example, he does around 20 videos a week now across all the channels, and he's presenting at least half of them, right? So there are checks and balances put in place. It is like a business. It's not. I know you see a channel with 2 or 3 people, and sometimes it does feel kind of gung ho. But I watch a lot of his videos where he's talking about how the videos gets made, and like there's one where he says how he makes a video in 1 day for TechTechPotato, I believe. Mm-hmm. And I'm watching that, and I'm like, this is the dream. This is what I want to do. But like, unfortunately, until I do like a face reveal, it's not really possible unless I really just slam that B-roll together. But I try to be thoughtful about it.
I like those sorts of videos, but I think purely from the creators in us, right? We want to know how the big dog's doing and how he does it and if we're doing anything different and if that's the right way to do it.
Yeah. Yeah. But I don't think is there any real way to do it? Who knows?
So aside from the channel, you also have the newsletter.
Mm-hmm.
How's that going?
It's. I mean, I don't really do much with it yet. I would like to do more with it. I feel like maybe I missed the boat with Dylan and all these other guys. Dylan has like 40,000 subs now, or it's crazy, and it's like, he's killing it, man. I'm really impressed.
If that was 40,000 paid subs at his monthly rate, oof.
He'd be making millions. He'd be making trajectory numbers.
Okay, given that all your videos are scripted, I mean, I still do at least half of mine are unscripted sort of free-form content.
Yeah.
I'm sure there'd be value if you posted your scripts. Is that something you've considered?
Yeah, I do that. That's a lot of what the newsletter does. And it's a lot of the scripts, and then I add like some additional commentary or a lot of stuff that I couldn't put into the video, though I try to stuff everything in there. But like, I think people enjoy that. I also noticed that like a lot of the subscribers don't like the history stuff. They kind of like the semiconductor stuff more and the science stuff more, which is fun. I will see how they feel if I put a bunch of water engineering videos in there. We'll see if they like that.
Yeah, it'll be your litmus test.
Yeah. How much are you really an Asianometry fan if you can handle all my water videos?
So, outside of Asia, what interests you most these days?
I'm interested in like, I recently did a video about atomic layer deposition. I'm really interested in learning more about the manufacturing side, not necessarily the kind of the like what companies are doing what, but the techniques. And I feel like I needed to educate myself a lot more on that, because lithography, I think I talked a lot about that, talked about the industry and all that. But I felt like I've missed a lot on etching, deposition, all the back end of the line, that kind of stuff. And I really needed to educate myself more. And so I've been doing a lot more videos about that recently. I don't know how they'll do, but at least I learned a lot coming out of it. And a lot of the terms started making more sense to me, which I think is a sign that, it's working.
It's interesting you bring that up, because I've been approached by some of these tool vendors now because they're interested in they're realizing that, hey, there is a wider audience just beyond our customers that we should reach. You don't do sponsored content.
I do like an ad, maybe like an ad read, but they don't get to pick what the video is. So like, I've not done like sponsored content in that sense. Yeah, should I? I think I should. It
pays kind of well. The benefit I find from it, from an audience perspective, I think, is sometimes if a company's got a message in mind that resonates well with an audience, and it gives you access to things that you wouldn't normally have access to, the engineers or physical access. In my case, I'm taking lots of B-roll around quantum machines and stuff.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah, I've seen things I don't think I ever would do if I hadn't have done it. So I think maybe you should check that out.
Yeah, maybe I should. That'd be fun. I'd love to do it. I get a lot of questions about like this or that, like quantum computers or something like that.
Yeah.
But like, if anyone's willing to fly me out to some place to take some P-roll, I'm down.
I'll tell my clients, I need a cameraman. Can you fly in John?
Yes, I will be your cameraman.
And folks, this is how I get all the camera for my on-site videos. Aside from the in-person events, you haven't really done any collaborations.
Yeah.
Is that by design?
No. I live in Taipei. I'm like out in the middle of nowhere. Like all the YouTubers are in Europe or in America. I don't fly out. I'm not like you, man. I can't handle the jet lag. It drives me insane.
Don't say that. I've got a 16-hour flight back home today. But you're in Taipei, though. Yeah. There are a lot of, especially semi-focused content creators that would love to be living here. I think. you have the benefit of having all these different companies down the road.
It's a lot harder than you think. I think it's a lot of like if you're talking about collaborations with like other YouTubers, I can't imagine any other English YouTuber that's like not like a Taiwanese audience focused. So it's like it's we're all sort of just doing our own thing. And I to be honest with you, I've only been to Hsinchu like 3 or 4 times. It's so far away. And then you drop off the high-speed rail and you're in the middle of nowhere. Maybe I'll go to the Costco or something.
I was in Hsinchu yesterday. It's only 40 minutes on the high-speed rail. John is lying. It's very easy to get to. TSMC is another 30-minute taxi after that. Yes, I'll grant you that. So comments in the description if you want to see me and John collaborating on a future video. It's the amount of times I think we've spoken together and say, let's do something. And it's actually taken me to come here to get you on camera.
I want to travel someday. I want to travel someday. I've been 3 years of COVID and then stuck in, I don't know. And it's hard to like, my girlfriend wants to come along too. So like it ends up being a vacation.
Right.
So, and that makes work harder.
So out of the American or the European based companies, especially in the tech space, which ones would you like to engage more with in terms of, a press engagement or event? Is there any that tickle your fancy?
I'd like to talk more to Texas Instruments. Like they have an interesting history. They're kind of just being out in Texas and all that, but doing what they're doing. I've just picked up a book of their history, which is like goes back to the 1960s or something. Love to start reading and see if I can make a video out of it. But like I would love to talk to them someday.
Texas Instruments, that whole area of business. You've got Infineon, on Semi, maybe a little bit of Motorola back in the day.
Yeah,
but
and didn't Morris Chang used to work there? Yeah, Morris Chang.
Yeah,
I think so. Yes,
it's the tech industry. Some incestuous bouillabaisse anyway, right?
That's very true. Yeah. I was gonna do like a video about like how tracing all these people through all the history, and it gets twisted, man.
Well, I think from there you have to start with the Tainan collective, right? Of Lisa and Jensen.
Yeah. It blew my mind that they are actually related, not by blood.
Related by marriage. Right. I always forget which way round it is, and I always get corrected, and I sometimes get a note in my ear saying, "Yeah, you shouldn't really mention that. They're not too fond of it being mentioned." But yeah, it's and there's 3 of them from that family that are big. I always forget the third one. Can you remember offhand?
I don't even remember. Do they even talk to each other? I don't talk to my grandma's grandma, sister's husband.
I'm pretty sure they're not exchanging Thanksgiving or Christmas cards, for example.
Because they're doing Chinese New Year cards. I'm just kidding.
But to that effect, Jensen's actually been traveling to Taiwan fairly often recently, and it was I had an earworm from another journalist saying that Lisa doesn't actually come by that often. How much do you think about the day-to-day business dealings of these big semis, especially with you having TSMC right, effectively on your doorstep?
I don't. I wish I would, and I feel like that would be more profitable in terms of like industry, because I've always wondered like it would be cool if I could do like a weekly checkout thing, where I just talk about semiconductor news. But again, like I don't want to spend my Saturday just cramming to make a video like that tech quickie stuff. I like to see people and go outdoors.
That's why you do a weekly live stream called the John Show.
The John Show.
and you have people in your community who collate stories of the week, and you may not have heard of them, so you can react to them live. I'm pretty sure that's what Linus and Luke do every week.
When I get big enough, I'll think about it. I don't think I'm big enough yet.
To be honest, I've had requests to do stuff like that. One of the issues is that I'm still traveling a fair amount, so actually pinning me down on a specific day every week is difficult. But also,
I know about that.
The other thing is you really do need a foil.
Yeah.
To bounce ideas from. If it's just a one-sided conversation, it gets very dull very quickly.
Yeah.
I think having somebody who also doesn't always agree from a different background, but at the same sort of level where you can kind of go deep into. It's.
I like Dylan and Doug in Transistor Radio. They bounce off each other, but it does get really intense. Like it's not like. They vibe in the sense that a nuclear explosion is a bunch of vibing in the way of
they're both much younger than us.
That's true.
They have a lot more energy.
They're just like, whoa! It's incredible.
It's for those that don't know, that's Doug McLaughlin from Fabricated Knowledge.
That's right.
He focuses a lot on the business and finance side, and Dylan kind of straddles that finance and tech side. It's Have you actually? That's one interesting thing to ask you, because I've done this with those two before. Do you ever get reached out to by investors to ask for your opinion on?
Absolutely not. I think people recognize I'm a content creator, not an industry analyst.
Tomato, or I should say potato.
Yeah, potato. I sometimes, like, some people will ask. I got one person who asked me, like, hey, can you give me some information or tell me a little bit about, like, the EUV chuck, like the which is the thing that holds the wafer. Can you tell me about the lubricant used in this particular chuck? And I'm like, yes, I know everything about this chuck.
Oh dear, that's going very That some proprietary chemical formula for the lubricant as supplied by 3M or something.
Yeah, or like from like some Soviet factory. I don't know. It's very. I don't know why they ask these really random questions, but Dylan gets all the fun ones. I get the chuck.
Okay, so along those lines. So EUV, we know, is done by feeding droplets of molten tin and hitting them in a plasma, hitting it with EUV to form a plasma, and that
a CO2 laser.
Yeah.
UV to create UV.
Yeah. There we go. But the machine to feed in the tin has evolved over time. I know you've covered this. It used to be essentially you put in a tin ingot.
Yes.
And now it's like a constant feed machine.
Yeah.
I once found the company who supplies the tin.
Really? Not the machine, it's the tin.
Yeah, it's EUV grade tin or whatever. and I reached out to them through email because they had a press at company. Multiple companies do it. It's not just the one. And I asked a bunch of questions, and the guy said, "We'll get back to you." And then a week later, they turned around and said, "Yeah, we didn't answer these questions." But I was just asking basic things like, "What's the rate of consumption of tin?" Right? How many? Yeah, it's. But then they think, well, if you work out how much tin a machine uses, maybe you can work out how much we sell, and therefore there's a revenue. Yeah, I was like, no, I'm just interested because it's a thing.
It's cool. It's 50,000 droplets a second. You don't want to brag about it? I don't know.
10 grams of tin per day.
Yeah.
It just sounds like a weird metric to know. It's on the back of the TwinScan EXE 5200 baseball card, right? Yeah, random stats. Height, 3 stories. Weight, 250 tons. Cost, 350 million. Consumption of tin, 10 grams per day.
Yeah. ASML needs to know this more. Like, I have a lot of ASML people who do email me sometimes.
Okay.
If I could tell them, I should tell them, like, please, you should publicize more of these because, like, it's cool. And it's, like, it's good for, like, recruiting or something.
I've tried that argument. ASML don't talk to me that much anymore. If you are an engineer at ASML, please do reach out. It's because they did a launch or an announcement or something, and it was like, if you standard press relations, if you have any questions, please let us know. And I think they were asking about questions more about the productization and the customer base, but I was asking more about the technology.
Yeah.
And again, random questions like how much tin does it into? And I gave out a period 8 questions, and the response I got back was amazingly sour. It was like being back at university and you ask your professor a question or a series of questions, and he basically says, go look at the research papers, and that's it. And I got really annoyed. So I'm like, well, hang on, this is press relations. The whole point is I'm not meant to be an expert. I'm asking the expert to distill it down for the purposes of marketing. Yeah. And you're telling me to go do 25 hours of research that my editor or my publisher just won't let me do. And yeah, I went through a PR agency. I don't know if the PR agency actually forwarded that email, because that was an email I perhaps should have slept on, but I've had no contact since. Which is annoying because, I think some of these companies, they're screaming for new people. We're currently in an industry really craving hardware engineers. Mm-hmm. Have you done a video yet about the rise and fall of the Western hardware engineer?
I kind of touched on it. I did a video about like why will young Americans want to work in semiconductor manufacturing, and I think it's pretty fair. I mean, it's something everyone's talking about, and I always ask every American this. I'm like, when I meet people in the industry, I'm like, do you think why don't young people want to work in semiconductors?
Oh, why did you end up in software? Well, money.
Yeah, I'm like, you get paid $120 or something. Yeah. As an experienced engineer, or you can work at Google and get paid $500,000. Yeah. And whatever. Your starting is 200, and then you work your way up. And then you get free lunches, everything. Yeah, it's because Professor Philip Wong Stanford, former CTO TSMC, I think, or at least he did a presentation last year at Semicon West about this. And the conclusion I always give is that Taiwan is manufacturing centric. So, of course, the students here are going to go do that. Same with Korea as well. In the US, because it's the software country of the world, right? I think there's just more incentive for the billion-dollar companies to go hire software engineers. Also, most tech companies these days are mostly software. Yeah. So nobody thinks about the applied materials, the Lam, the KLA, what have you. They all think about the Google, the Microsoft, the Meta. Yeah, that's what your parents. No, your parents would be like, "Hey, yeah, that guy's stable." But it's the same thing in Taiwan, where like your in-laws' parents would be very pleased if you worked at TSMC. I heard a weird rumor. I don't know. Somebody said that the latest generation have a stigma against dating somebody who works at TSMC. Have you heard this? Oh yeah, where like you'll never get to see them, right? It's I just heard the briefest of things, and it sort of pinged right in the back of my memory to ask, what is that all about? Well, just like you work long hours, right? But it's an interesting thing to think about, because it's like there's another big institution in Taiwan that I know very well that is has very rough hours, and that's the health center, the medical center here. Like nurses work basically the same shifts. Like, you work 12 hours or something, and you don't see them for a long time, and it might be at the middle of the night. I don't know, like it's the same sort of problem. Yeah, it's I know a lot of medical professionals in the US, it's like that as well. You have 12, 18-hour shifts or back-to-backs, and it just sounds insane. There was a quote, I think, from CC Wei, that's the CEO of TSMC, for anyone who doesn't know, because, again, they had their AGM yesterday as we're filming this. And I saw in Dan Neistat's Twitter feed, sorry, Dan, I don't know how to pronounce your last name. Yeah. That apparently one of the quotes was, if you're not used to working overtime, then don't come work for TSMC. And then there was, somebody was linking that, well, is that going to be the case when they expand to Arizona? Yeah, that's a tough one. I think it's, there's I don't want to talk about cultures, but I like, company cultures is that there's some companies that you just need to. When I was at that Morris Chang meeting, I went to that Morris Chang talk with Chris Miller, and at the end, before they cut him off, he was talking a little bit about he got a little bit into the manufacturing side and talking a little bit about like the shift. You got the sense that this was a man who had no compromises in terms of the line. The line must always keep moving.
Yeah.
I think that sort of culture is, that culture is probably why they win more.
So you see, that's interesting because last year I visited Intel in Israel, Fab 28, I think it is.
Yeah, it's a very nice one.
Which is their volume manufacturing facility that's just dedicated to manufacturing globally. And of course, it's got a very Israeli Hebrew culture around it. So the only day they're shut is Yom Kippur.
Right.
I mean, the machines are still on. They don't turn them off, and there's a skeleton crew. But even then, there's a culture of not working one day of the week, but everything still has to keep running.
Yeah.
So it's to say that just because that's how you run things seems a little bit short-sighted. I don't know. Yeah, that companies have to adapt to globalize these days.
Yeah, I don't know how it's going to be in the United States. I'm sure there will be adjustments will be made and stuff like that.
Yeah,
and I think I know in Taiwan that there's a culture here where there's an expectation of convenience on the side of the customer. The 7-Elevens are open 24 hours, right? Someone's got to staff that.
Yeah. I remember coming back for several Computexes in a row. I stayed at the same hotel and I went to the same 7-Eleven, and the guy recognized me every year. So, dude, you still work here?
And it's same with TSMC. You work the crazy hours, but you get paid very well, and then maybe hopefully my understanding is that there are people there work for 20 years. They don't really 30 years, lifers, and then they just that's their routine, and that's what they live, and that's what they're okay with. And in some ways that's a good thing, because for the company it's a good thing. For the customer it's a good thing, because you have a person who's done this job for 20 years and he's a total expert, where opposed to a guy who jumps around every 1 or 2 years. There's a loss there, but it's no doubt it's better for that person's maybe life, career, and all that.
I don't know, companies that have too many long-term staff sometimes are slow to pivot if they need to.
Correct.
Because obviously we've seen TSMC pivot over the last 10 years to being behind to being ahead. You can argue whether that's due to failures on the other side of the fence. But when you look at the amount of research that's being done, the volume that's being done, going back to Arizona, because we're seeing a lot more, a number of fabs now being constructed in the area. And you said that water reclamation videos are still sitting on the cutting room floor because you don't think anybody will be interesting.
Right.
TSMC yesterday spoke about their water reclamation zero liquid consumption or zero liquid waste that they're doing in Arizona. So it's going to be it's still a big topic out there.
Oh no, I did a video about water in semiconductors, and I just mentioned this Arizona water stuff, these water rights, and people got pretty mad about it. I stepped into a hornet's nest, and that's why you don't have a big subscriber count. I was doing that, and then I think TSMC had no idea either, but they've done a lot more work in terms of water reclamation, and I think everyone sort of acknowledges that the goal is that the water goes in sort of a closed system, and then yes, there will be a drawdown, but some of the water will be returned as well as filtered. And I remember when I went to Tainan to see these massive fab, like Fab 18 and TSMC. You see a lot of the construction of the fab, but what you don't see is a lot of the water engineering projects are going on the side. They're building a massive canal to bring water from the ocean, where there's a big water reclamation site in the city that they funded and I think paid for. And they're going to bring this water to this massive, I can't imagine. It's like this swamp. It's like a lake. There's a massive lake next to the big fab, and I'm assuming that they're going to suck that up to use. A lot of water engineering projects there. It's fascinating.
I did hear that TSMC uses 4% of all the renewable energy in Taiwan.
That sounds too low for me. They probably use more.
Well, it's there's the argument about companies how much renewable energy they use, and TSMC is actually quite low on the list. I think it's something like 9%. And the CEO and the chairman yesterday said it's 2030 would be difficult to hit any meaningful, sort of 80% plus target. So they're going more for the 2030, 2040, 2050.
Taiwan's really lagging behind in terms of renewable energy. I think like their offshore wind project is, looks like it's not doing well. So now it's late. There's not a lot of land to build these windmills or solar. So I mean, I
get plenty of sun based on what's out there today.
Oh, for sure. But where are you going to put the panels?
So it's more of just a terrain and infrastructure and funding issue.
There's a lot of environmental opposition as well. I think TSMC is seeing a lot of issues just with acquiring more land in the northern part of Taiwan.
Yeah.
And I think that's a big challenge. And I think that, you're right. Once you get to a certain point, it's mountains.
Yeah.
And then you can't really do anything with the mountains.
So on the environmental side, one of the things that's been hitting the news recently is the use of PFAS, polyfluoral alkyl chemistry stuff.
Yeah.
Basically long chains of fluorines, carbon chains of fluorines. Is this an upcoming video?
Probably not. This is the first time I've ever heard about it.
Okay.
I would say, but I did a video about like the general chemicals that they use. Mm-hmm. One of the biggest problems is that they can't get into the fabs, and they won't let you see what they're using in the fabs because it's all trade secret. And I think maybe there's some way they'll figure it out. They'll figure out something to deal with it. But generally, a lot of these places do. There's a reason why Silicon left Silicon Valley. And that's why it's all software now.
Yeah.
This stuff is toxic.
Yeah. The thing about PFAS is it stays in the ecosystem for millennia. And it's, quantifiably measurable in humans now, sort of thing. And
that's great news for sounds like great things to be in our bodies.
Oh, yeah, for sure. So I won't take up too much more of your time. Is there one thing you hope that people who watch your channel and are really interested in what you have to say, what their take home is?
I hope they take home that they enjoy the channel, enjoy watching it. Hope they think that I'm not a terrible person. I hope that I want them to learn more about how kind of interactions between different parties are, the importance of manufacturing and importance of microelectronics technology, semiconductors. We're on a semiconductor show, but I think it's really. I think people should recognize that a lot of the tech in this world is kind of really driven by people a world away, and we should recognize and acknowledge their sacrifices for that.
And so, where can everybody find you? If they don't know already, you should know.
Yeah. You can find me on the Asianometry YouTube. You can tweet at me, though I don't know if I will tweet back. And could shoot me an email at john@asianometry.com.
Awesome. Thanks, John.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
A lot of the content on this channel wouldn't be possible without you, the supporters. Many thanks to all who support. And if you're interested in supporting, then we have Patreon, we have a merch store, I have a Substack newsletter, or simply just like and subscribe. It really does help out the channel.